graduated, elevated. Now it's my time to shine, yeah, let's go. Major moves, power moves, take it to the top one time, non-stop.
Right, so moving on from that then, we'll go to how do you identify the research gap? Because I think most people, they overthink when it comes to a research gap. What is the quickest way to identify a research gap, in your opinion?
Is there a quickest way to do that? I don't know. Of course, reading widely and engaging with current scholarship and debates will help you to sort of identify something that needs to be done. And you might even find that what we are seeing as a research gap is not necessarily a gap, right? You have to take it into a gap through certain arguments. For instance, research could have been done maybe in America or whatever, other context and stuff. And for instance, I'm not saying for instance many times, there's a friend of mine in Israel who was looking at how old people use Facebook. Like old people in their 90s, 80s, 70s and stuff. So what they do is, at a friend Mguni, then you search for Mguni children on Facebook. Definitely most African elders are not on Facebook. And then they befriend those kids, right? Those children. Right. And then they say, your surname sounds familiar. I went to school with so-and-so, so-and-so. And that child will respond back and say, oh, that's my great-grandmother or great-grandfather or grandfather and stuff. And they will ask for connection with their long-lost high school, right? There's a similar research been done in Africa. You look for it, you don't find it, but it has been done elsewhere. But you can sort of domesticate it into your own context and try to also look at other areas. So wide reading and also engaging with current debates, you pick up certain issues of journals or even themed issues. You can easily see what has been discussed and what has not been discussed and try to engage. And the gap doesn't really have to be really huge, because that's a skill. Most people want to do research that's world-changing and they want to put everything into the research. Find something that you can engage with, something that you can run with, and make sense with that particular small. It doesn't have to be insignificant. You have to have a significant contribution in the field, right? But don't push yourself in a way that you want to change the world, and so this is what I would advise that you do. And some of us have experienced living with the subaltern communities, those who are on the margins and stuff. Definitely there are certain ways or certain researches that have been done, especially by when scholars come from other places into certain places, sometimes the analysis might be not really from, I'm trying to find a way of putting it. For instance, I live in the urban areas. I go and do research in the rural areas. I come up with my analysis, which is sort of a middle class view of things, right? What happens to the view of those people? How is their experience? Brian Kagoro tells a story that in Kenya, there was a village where women were getting water from a faraway place. And then a non-governmental organization came and said, oh, these women are suffering. Let's dig a bowl in the center of the village so that women can get water. And, in Africa, as women would go and get water for the household and do the chores and stuff. But the women continued going 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers to the river. And when they were asked, they were like, we are women with our own issues to talk about. So we need that distance. Actually, that distance is insignificant for our conversations, right? So you put a pole in the middle of the village, which is like 20 meters from my house. I don't want that experience of that being cut off, my friends, right? Of course, they'll get some drinking water from that particular tap and stuff, but we'll still go to the river for their. And what's happening there? Somebody saw it from his perspective that they are in trouble, therefore we need to help them this way, this way, this way. But did they see their trouble as was seen by the donors? Definitely not, right? So there are some research gaps that exist not because the work has not been done, but because the work has been done, but the analysis has been wrong or has not been on point. It's been from a certain perspective. It's been from a certain area. And this is why, again, we have problems with, I'll use the city village, but my example is not about the city and the village.
Okay.
You have some of us who live in the city being experts about the village. After visiting the village 2 times and writing 2 papers, then we have to appear on the media, on Noma's global platform, and we're now experts on the village.
Why not, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So we have a duty to undo some of those harmful conclusions and analysis and researches, and those are definitely gaps, at least for me. All right? Yeah.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and I think sometimes, like, going back to your tweet, you're publishing because you need a job. You're publishing because you want your name to be out there and you want to be cited. You know, you want your name to be out there, and some people have outsourced so that they have power. You know, called doctor or prof. You know, it's that thing. You know, and you know we can't take it away from them. But I think your wise words really, they will help somebody out there somewhere. And thank you very much for sharing. So now we're going to round off. We're just going to answer some questions that have come in from some people. So someone has asked if it is a good idea to self-fund. So they've applied for a place, university, they got accepted, but they've just realized that they have to pay for themselves and they don't know what to do. Do you think it's a good idea to go through your research and also pay your bills?
When I was doing my PhD, I had to do graduate work at university in order to fund myself, which it worked well, and the university was paying part of my fees anyway. When I was applying for PhD, I used to get part funding, but I never took up those because I thought I'll just be in a situation where I wouldn't want to be in when I get stranded. So really, for me, it's important that graduate students enter into the PhD space when they're secure. There's some people who are actually lucky. They go into it with nothing and doors just open when they're in there, right? And it's quite important that you get to ask those who have traveled the same journey, especially in the same institution, what are the possibilities of getting funding and things like that. And also keep on applying for scholarships that might arise or that are relevant to your field of study and they're willing to fund you. But self-funding, if you don't have funds, is a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. There are some instances where people have been stranded and then mental health issues kick in and somebody gets into a situation that is not very good, right? So you really have to make a calculation. Take the risk, but let not the risk be devastating at the end, right? Or at least go into it when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because for graduate students, really, you need space to read and write and do your research rather than be running to the lab in the evenings and during the day. You're working in the restaurants or five jobs or whatever the case is that some people are doing, which might not be good for your health and definitely might not be good for your progress as a postgraduate or as a graduate student.
No, thank you very much for your detailed response. I think the next question is, do you feel fulfilled when you publish a paper?
I don't know. No. You know, now I think what fulfills me more than publishing is to when my students graduate or when I mentor somebody into writing a paper or we co-author. I think now my fulfillment comes from there, right? This doesn't mean that I don't get happy when my paper is published. I do. And research and writing really remains my priority. But what will make me jump up is when I do something with somebody. Because some of us never had those opportunities where somebody will say, come and write with me, I will hold your hand. We never had that, right? And some of us have to start and sort of try and do that. So I guess my larger if you were to create fulfillment number one is when I do that. When my student graduates or when I co-author a paper with somebody that is not at my level, right? I feel like I've helped somebody. Yeah. And then maybe the other fulfillments when I publish and stuff, yeah, those are sort of, it used to be when I was starting up, but now it's no longer a priority.
Interesting. So in terms of equality and diversity, we know it's a thing at the moment, and inclusion, equity, all that fun stuff. Looking at women in academia, do you think we are given the voice, since you mentioned voice, the opportunities, and is our money stepping up to where it should be? Or do you think we still need more work and we need more awareness and education to the woman as well as the institutions themselves? Or do you think actually, no, it isn't a problem? Go out there, do your thing, black girl magic or Caucasian magic, whatever the terms are nowadays. I don't know, don't come for me, but whatever they are.
Yeah, you know, I've met some of the most fiercely brilliant black women who actually don't need this. So when they're given things, don't necessarily need to be given things just because they are women. Their work is out there and speaks for themselves, right? And then there are some cases possibly that could exist that confirm otherwise. So I think at one level it's really important to have those conversations and also look at the research from female academics and male academics during COVID lockdowns. We, the privileged men, produced more outputs than women. We know why that was the case, right? And maybe also in Africa, the barriers that are there, the ceilings that are there, some of them actually are meant to affect women rather than men, or even indeed in sort of in publishing. I have to deliberately, sometimes in some instances, make sure that I have to cite women scholars in my work, right? Some of us men, we wouldn't even bother it's and again, by the way, citing is political, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are certain people that I don't cite.
I didn't know that. Just for the record.
There are certain people who don't cite me because of their issues.
Right.
Right? So sometimes as a scholar we have to be deliberate about certain choices that that we make. And secondly, in my previous job, I had funding to mentor one junior scholar, associate, a master's, and I had to make sure that I pick up a woman deliberately, so that I empower her, and she's actually very, very brilliant, right? I think I was in a very happy space to work with her because she was dedicated and she could easily be taught and stuff, and she was doing well in that. And I really enjoyed that experience, and then I left that job to my current job. But another important thing also is universities or our communities, especially in Africa. We have to make deliberate choices to empower women, not for the sake of empowering women, but because they're deserving to, and because some of the privileges that men get, are not necessarily because they are deserved. If we talk about being equally deserved with comparing men and women, and there has to be a deliberate slant in terms of that, because we exist in communities and spaces that are not friendly to women. I would dare say that probably globally, university spaces have not been made to be friendly to women, especially by men. We get shocked when we hear about sexual harassment issues in Western universities, right? By scholars, some of whose books I have in my in my bag, right? So those things they make the spaces, and if I were to come up with a grant and then I'm told to find a collaborator as a man, what are my biases, right? I'll definitely look for the other guys men that I've published with, but I have to make a deliberate effort to say, okay, let me try and work with a woman, not because I want to tick certain boxes. Well, at work I haven't been even asked to. Have you ever worked with a woman or a person? Is it oppressed or marginalized? What is it? Yeah, it has never come up, right? But I have to be deliberate in that. I have to work with women, because definitely I've worked with many men. Well, embarrassingly, I've published more with men than with women. But I would actually confirm that I'm happy that in this year alone, I've worked with 3 women in editing a book together, and currently we're trying to write a paper with other 2 or 3 women, right? So we need to be, as men, deliberate about that, and also realize the privileges that we get. I don't know if I should say this here, but well, let me.
Safe environment. Go on, you can share.
No. Well, okay. There are certain spaces that I've been into, even though sometimes I feel like my application was not good enough. And when I was sharing this with one female colleague yesterday, she says, "Oh, they just looked at your name, not at the application. That's why they invited you." And this is true. Well, not in this instance.
I get the gist.
But-
You know, it's like, I'll give you an example to flip it, right? It's like if you have a brown person being invited to a Caucasian room, you know you're ticking the box. You're not meant to be there, but you're there because HR has said you should be there. So I get it. I get the picture.
So yeah, there's somebody who actually shared some tweets the other time that he actually in the US he was being given jobs because he was black, brown, right? In the university, these quotas for, you know, there's a post that is meant for black people. It's funded by such and such a fund. It's for black professors and stuff. But he was saying that he felt mediocre at that time, but he has improved himself, right?
Mm.
And definitely some of us as men, especially in Africa, and indeed in the world, we get into certain spaces just because we are men, and sometimes nothing more than that, right? And there'll be equally deserving women sometimes who get to be marginalized. And I don't know, some people say that women are not pushy enough or men are pushy and stuff. And this depends on how we are trained also. I remember the other day I did a conversation with an editor. She called me on Skype. That was on Zoom. Probably before Noma was born. So
We're not going there with the age.
so conversation. She wanted to cut my paper because it was too long, and I was refusing. I was like, no. But she was very wonderful, Shem. She was very wonderful, and I was refusing. I was like, no. But if you cut this paragraph, then this is my paper loses. And then she was like, oh, okay. I'm going to go to the editorial board and ask them that they allow us to have your article longer than usual, right? And this is just a minor example to say, are there people actually afraid of standing up to that? My paper has been accepted, everything has been confirmed, but it's too long. We need to cut it, right? Am I in a position to say, don't cut it? If you cut it, I'm walking away with it and risk another 6 months of peer review, right? So the training that a certain level of aggression is needed in every scholar, you know?